Hi, my name is Laila. I'm a singer, songwriter, and producer, and this is
What if the next great R&B star didn't come from a machine, didn't beg for approval, didn't play by the usual rules? What if she didn't even try to take over, and did it anyway? Because while the industry was busy chasing loud trends and algorithm-friendly replicas, a quiet voice from Brooklyn slipped through the cracks and stayed there long enough to change the sound of modern R&B. Her name is Laila. And if you've heard the words, "Not my problem," floating through your headphones, TikTok timelines, or late-night playlist, then you've already met her, whether you knew it or not. What makes Laila's rise unusual isn't just how young she is, it's how unbothered she seems by the rush. There are no forced rollouts, there is no overexposure, there is no industry desperation, there are just records and resonance. So how did an 18-year-old, self-producing artist manage to break into one of the most competitive genres in music without screaming for attention? To understand that, you have to rewind to a bedroom in Brooklyn. Laila, born Laila Smith on April 19, 2006, is a Brooklyn-raised singer, songwriter, and self-taught producer, redefining modern R&B through a deeply personal, DIY approach to music making. She represents a new generation of artists who don't wait for studio access or industry approval. Instead, they build their own sound from the ground up. Her father is Yasin Bey, formerly known as Mos Def, a fact the internet obsessed over later, but one Laila kept deliberately out of the spotlight in her early rise. Her mother, Jessica Chong, has been a steady and deliberate presence behind the scenes, serving not only as a parent but also as her manager. She has also spoken about growing up with siblings, particularly sisters, who appear occasionally in her content. While their names and lives remain intentionally private, their presence shows up in the way Laila moves, protective of her personal circle, selective about what she shares, and deeply conscious of boundaries. What mattered more than lineage was environment. Music wasn't something she studied. It was something that constantly existed around her. By the time most kids her age were discovering hits through radio rotation, Laila was already deep into R&B catalogs that predated her birth. Brandy, Aaliyah, Janet Jackson, Lauryn Hill, artists who didn't rush emotion but let it breathe. While her peers followed whatever was trending that week, Laila was stuck in the 90s and early 2000s, sonically out of sync with her generation, but future-proof in hindsight. That disconnect mattered, because feeling out of place early often creates artists who don't depend on approval later. By her early teens, Laila wasn't just listening to music, she was making it. She was teaching herself production through GarageBand and Logic Pro. She began writing, recording, and shaping songs alone, often inside her bedroom and sometimes in a closet for better acoustics. There were no focus groups. There were no trend forecasts. There was no label direction. There was just instinct. Half of her debut album would later be recorded this way: raw, imperfect, personal, with Laila, handling vocals, songwriting, and production herself. That DIY discipline did something important early on. It eliminated dependence. She wasn't waiting for access, she was building control. In 2023, at just 16 years old, Laila uploaded a song called Like That. There was no major rollout, there was no viral strategy, there was no expectation, there was just a short clip on TikTok. And then, without warning, it caught. Millions of streams followed. Creators began using the sound. Playlists folded it into rotation. What made Like That hit wasn't volume, it was texture. Her voice sat somewhere between singing and speaking. The beat felt understated but confident. The energy wasn't thirsty, it was self-possessed. The industry didn't know how to categorize it. Listeners didn't care. Like That became her first statement, not because it demanded attention, but because it refused to overperform. Then came the real test. Could she follow it up? In 2024, Laila dropped Not My Problem. This time, the tone shifted. It was still relaxed. It was still effortless, but it was sharper. The hook wasn't begging for validation. It was dismissing it. The record cracked charts, surged across TikTok again and landed her cosigns from Tyler, the creator, to Solange, quietly confirming what fans already felt. This wasn't luck. She wasn't reacting to trends. She was setting mood. Here's the part that's easy to miss. Most breakout artists accelerate when virality hits. They flood the market. They overshare. They chase visibility. Laila did the opposite. She slowed down. Instead of forcing singles, she worked on an album, Gapyear, writing and producing all 17 tracks herself, many of them still built in the same bedroom where all of this started. While others rushed to monetize attention, she refined identity. That decision changed everything. Laila isn't taking over R&B by dominating charts overnight. She's doing it the quiet way, by prioritizing ownership, by trusting instinct over algorithms, by letting listeners come to her. And in an era built on immediacy, that patience feels radical. But it also feels familiar, like the early days of artists who didn't need permission. They just needed time. And Laila has barely started. By the time most artists her age are still figuring out who they want to be, Laila had already made a harder decision. She chose clarity over speed, and that choice shows up most clearly in one project, the album that turned her from a viral name into a serious presence. When Laila announced her debut album, Gapyear, in 2024, the title confused people at first. A gap year usually means stepping away. It means pausing direction. It means delaying commitment. But for Laila, the gap year wasn't absence. It was focus. She had graduated high school early, opted out of the traditional college path, and poured that time into music instead. There were no deadlines. There was no external pressure. There was just intentional creation. That context matters because Gapyear doesn't sound like an album rushed into existence to capitalize on virality. It sounds like an artist getting comfortable with herself. Unlike most Gen Z debut projects, Gapyear wasn't built through a web of collaborators and executive producers. Laila wrote it. Laila produced it. Laila arranged it. Nearly half the album was recorded in her bedroom, continuing the same process that birthed her earliest songs, long before any industry attention arrived. That independence creates a noticeable effect when you listen. The album doesn't chase chart formulas. It doesn't over-polish emotion. It doesn't apologize for subtlety. Instead, it leans into warm, nostalgic R&B textures. It leans into lo-fi edges that feel lived in. It leans into lyrics that reflect observation over performance. Songs like Sink to Rise, Could Be, and Flyer Than You don't scream for replay value. They earn it through mood and honesty, and that's rare. Gapyear didn't debut with spectacle. There was no dramatic press run. There was no manufactured controversy. There was no forced virality. And yet, it resonated. Critics highlighted how mature the project felt for an 18-year-old artist, especially one handling multiple roles on her own. Listeners connected because the songs didn't feel engineered. They felt documented. This wasn't an album trying to prove she belonged. It was an album behaving as if she already did. That distinction changed how people talked about her. Eventually, the internet did what it always does. The conversation turned to her last name when Laila publicly confirmed that Yasin Bey, Mos Def, is her father. Skepticism followed almost immediately. But unlike many cases where lineage becomes the headline, something different happened here. The music kept winning. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Nepotism might open doors, but it cannot teach restraint. It cannot manufacture taste. It cannot fake instinct. If anything, Laila seemed intent on separating her sound from expectation. She rarely leaned on comparisons. She rarely invoked legacy. She rarely spoke as if inheritance explained ability. In interviews, she acknowledged her upbringing, but framed it as exposure, not entitlement. And more importantly, her audience didn't care. The songs connected without needing context. The fan base grew organically. The work stood on its own. That's why the narrative faded. What's quietly happening with Laila is bigger than one project. She represents a shift where many Gen Z artists are hyper-visible, always online, always reacting, always explaining. Laila thrives in selective presence. She doesn't overshare. She doesn't flood timelines. She doesn't confuse access with relevance. Instead, she lets music arrive when it's ready. That approach has earned her something more durable than hype. Fans trust that when she releases something, it's intentional. Industry peers trust her taste. Platforms like Colors and Billboard trust her artistry enough to feature her without rebranding her sound. That trust is how control is built quietly. When Laila performs live, the same pattern holds. Her sets aren't built on spectacle. They don't rely on backing tracks to carry emotion. They aren't over-choreographed. Instead, she performs like someone who knows the room will come to her. Her early headline shows sold out fast, not because of marketing pressure, but because the audience already felt invested. That's not luck, that's alignment. If you zoom out, Laila's rise tells you something important about where R&B is heading. The genre isn't looking for the loudest voice, it's looking for the most believable one. In the 1990s, R&B rewarded emotional clarity. In the 2000s, it rewarded star power. In the streaming era, it briefly rewarded virality. Now, it's circling back to authentic texture. Artists like Laila aren't competing for dominance. They're slowly removing alternatives. By the time the industry fully realizes what's happening, she'll already be embedded in the sound of the era. It's one you wake up to, one playlist at a time, one late night listen at a time, one "who is this?" moment at a time. And by the time people call it inevitable, it will already be done. By the time most young artists feel pressured to prove their success through excess, Laila has taken a markedly different route. Her relationship with money, space, and luxury doesn't look like domination. It looks like discipline. As of now, there is no public record of Laila purchasing a multi-million-dollar mansion or relocating to a celebrity enclave like Calabasas or Miami Beach. Instead, she has continued to emphasize her creative roots in Brooklyn, the same environment where much of her early work and even large portions of her debut album, Gapyear, were recorded in bedrooms and makeshift home studios. That absence of flashy real estate is not a sign of limitations. It's a signal of timing. At just 19 years old, Laila appears to be prioritizing mobility, privacy, and creative control over permanent displays of wealth. For an artist who self-produces, space isn't measured in square footage, it's measured in freedom. And so far, she hasn't rushed to trade that freedom for spectacle. Her approach to cars follows a similar pattern. In mid-2025, Laila publicly celebrated buying her first personal vehicle, a moment that circulated widely among fans and interview clips. While the exact model was never officially confirmed, the tone of the moment is revealing. This wasn't a hyper-luxury statement or an Instagram flex built around status. It was a milestone, a young artist quietly enjoying the reward of independence rather than announcing dominance. There are no verified reports linking her to exotic supercars, convoy garages, or rotating six-figure vehicles. And that restraint aligns perfectly with her larger image. Laila's rise isn't built on visual excess, it's built on credibility. Her lifestyle purchases appear practical, controlled, and emotionally grounded, reflecting someone who understands the difference between celebration and distraction. Where her financial evolution does become visible is in the brands that choose to align with her, and just as importantly, the ones she chooses to accept. By early 2025, Laila had entered a small but carefully curated circle of brand partnerships. Rather than flooding her image with endorsements, she worked with just a handful of companies that mirrored her aesthetic and values. Among them was Arte Antwerp, a globally respected fashion label known for understated design and cultural credibility. She fronted their Spring/Summer 2025 campaign, positioning her not as a trend follower, but as a tastemaker. She also partnered with Softswerve, a brand whose appeal is rooted in subtlety rather than mass-market noise, and Topo Chico, a lifestyle brand that bridges youth culture, authenticity, and everyday luxury. All three collaborations launched in the same window, suggesting not opportunism, but selectivity. This matters because endorsement economics at her stage could easily push far beyond that scale. Yet, Laila has resisted over monetization. She has avoided short-term cash grabs in favor of brand alignment that strengthens identity rather than dilutes it. As for luxury items, designer handbags, diamond jewelry, high-profile fashion collections, there is no public documentation tying her to six-figure purchases or status-driven consumption. No Birkin rollouts, no headline watches, no first million displays. And again, That absence speaks louder than presence. Laila operates like an artist who understands that real luxury is longevity, ownership of masters, ownership of production, ownership of narrative. These are the assets she's quietly accumulating, while others race to decorate success before it stabilizes. At this stage, her wealth doesn't announce itself through objects. It reveals itself through control. Control over her sound, control over her pace, control over how much of her life becomes consumable. And that may be the clearest sign yet that she isn't just earning money, she's building leverage. There's a subtle moment in every artist's trajectory, the point where conversations shift, not from "who is this?" but "pay attention." That moment came quietly for Laila, when names with nothing to gain from hype started paying attention. Tyler, The Creator, Solange, Catranada, Snow Allegra. None of them rushed collaborations. None of them tried to redirect her sound. They simply listened. That matters, because cosigns at this level aren't about numbers. They're about alignment. When Laila appeared at Camp Flog Nor in 2024, her performance didn't feel like a breakout opportunity. It felt like a placement, like someone already accepted into the room, not auditioning for it. That's a distinction most people miss. Laila's influence isn't loud enough to measure with charts alone. It shows up in subtler ways. Songwriting that leans conversational instead of performative, beats that feel personal instead of maximal, vocals that sit inside the production, not above it. Across Gen Z and early millennial R&B, that shift is already visible. More bedroom-built records, more restraint, more emotional specificity without over-explaining. You can hear echoes of it on playlists, on emerging artists' first releases, on songs that choose atmosphere over aggression. That's how real movements begin, not with manifestos, but with imitation. And Laila has become quietly imitable without ever being generic. One of the least flashy but most consequential parts of Laila's rise is how much she owns. Creatively and technically, she writes, she produces, she records, she understands structure. That means her ceiling isn't limited by access. Streaming era R&B has already burned through dozens of artists who broke big and burned fast because they relied on teams to make identity decisions for them. Laila doesn't have that problem. Her music sounds consistent because it is authored, not assembled. And that's why platforms like Colors, Billboard, and Rolling Stone framed her not as a moment, but as a builder. Here's another thing that works in her favor. She hasn't peaked stylistically early. Many artists debut with their loudest ideas, their most forced risks, their biggest swings. Laila did the opposite. Gapyear sounds open-ended by design, like a foundation, not a finale. As she grows older, her subject matter will deepen, her sonic references will widen, her confidence will sharpen, and none of that requires her to abandon what works. That's how longevity is quietly engineered. If you look at artists who truly shape R&B, not just commercially, but culturally, they don't dominate by flooding the space. They redefine what quality sounds like. Laila is already doing that by making patience feel cool again, by proving DIY doesn't mean small, by reminding the genre that intimacy scales farther than excess. Her first headlining tour sold on connection, not spectacle. Her fan base feels invested, not rented. Her catalog feels lived in, not market-tested. Those are markers of artists who don't disappear between albums. They accumulate meaning. The loudest revolutions burn out quickly. The quiet ones rewrite rules while nobody's watching. Laila isn't here to dominate headlines. She's here to become unavoidable. 5 years from now, her sound will feel familiar, not because it faded, but because it helped set the tone. That's what happens when an artist doesn't rush visibility, when they value control over virality, when they let music travel instead of pushing it. Fame is loud, it is temporary, it is dependent on attention. Gravity works differently. It pulls things toward it over time. Laila doesn't chase listeners. Listeners orbit her. And by the time the industry fully agrees that she's leading R&B forward, she won't need confirmation. She'll already be there.